some of the material. We're going to start with price discrimination. And price discrimination is simply, I charge different prices to different people or to different groups according to their willingness to pay. So I want to identify sub-market with different price elasticities and segment the markets and charge different prices to consumers in each sub-market. We're going to start with the monopolist graph that we did last week. All right. Go. Now, I have 5 little color-coded geometrical shapes. If you remember, if they were charging a price where marginal cost equals price, right here, right? The area above the price would be consumer surplus. The area below the price is producer surplus. When we have a monopoly, and they charge a price where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, right? We produce a smaller amount, QM, right? And charge a higher price. But you notice we lose X and Z. X, which was consumer surplus, and Z, which was producer surplus. We call that deadweight loss, right? Nobody gets it. Consumers don't get it, producers don't get it. And this area W right here is transformed from consumers to producers. Okay. So if we price discriminate, right? The definition is when the product is sold at more than one price. The difference in price among similar products are evidence of price discrimination unless price differences are not based on cost differences. That's strictly for legal purposes because price discrimination is illegal, right? In general, but people, as we're going to see, do second and third degree price discriminate. First degree price discrimination is when I'm able to charge a different price to every single consumer. I charge the highest price to that first consumer that's willing to pay the highest price on the demand curve. And then the next person, I charge him a little lower price, and I keep going down the demand curve. And I charge everyone a different price. What that allows the producer to do is capture 100% of the consumer surplus. ¿Había preguntas? So the equilibrium output and the marginal cost are the same under perfect competition. We go all the way until price equals marginal cost. And we get rid of the deadweight loss in the monopoly. But all the consumer surplus is transferred to the producer. It requires a firm have a reliable small number of buyers, and they're able to estimate the buyer reservation price. And can be operationalized, as we'll see later, with the 2-part tariff. Okay. So in this case, right, I just charge a price equal to marginal cost. Notice I don't even have marginal revenue on the demand curve. And all this area here, right, is captured by the producer because he's able to charge a price up here, then a price to the second consumer, then a slightly lower price to the third consumer, and you keep going until, right, you charge a different price to every consumer, and that last price equals marginal cost. Let me draw a graph. I have my demand curve. I have my marginal revenue curve. Black one. And a marginal cost curve, right? I can first degree price discriminate, I'll charge different prices to each consumer, right? And all this area that would be consumer surplus under perfect competition is now producer surplus, right? And of course, all that would be in producer surplus under perfect competition remains producer surplus. Now, if we had a monopoly, we charge this price to everybody, right? And this area here and this area here would be deadweight loss. This used to be consumer surplus, it's gone. This was producer surplus, it's gone. And this rectangle is a transfer from the consumer to the producer. So in terms of general welfare, if you can first degree price discriminate, you actually have better welfare or more welfare than under a monopoly. Although, right, the consumer basically loses all his surplus under first degree. It's just a transfer from consumer to producer. Okay. Second degree price discrimination. It's a form of price discrimination which the seller charges a different price for different quantities of goods. You can have quantity discounts, minimum purchase requirements, cover charge, tie-in sales. All makes it so that customers separate themselves according to willingness to pay. That's second degree price discrimination. Although your book treats cover charges as third degree price discrimination, which is the first time I've seen it, but I like the book, so I keep the book. For our purposes, it doesn't matter if it's second degree or third degree, just as long as we understand what it does. And we'll talk about that a little later. So second degree price discrimination, most commonly used by utilities, gas, electric, water. And I basically charge a price to one group, charge a different price to another group, and then charge the third price to a third group. And that's second degree price discrimination. In the next graph, well, let me show you the graph before I show you. We have third degree price discrimination. And this is where I have two groups where I'm able to separate them into two different groups, segment, right, and separate them. And I make sure that one group can't sell, right, whatever they bought to another. So in this case, I'm going to have the marginal cost curve. I'm going to have the demand and marginal revenue from the first group, the demand and marginal revenue from the second group. And in some books, that's how they do it. They take this, right? The first, I'm sorry, it will be here, and just maximize for the first group and maximize for the second group. This book, I guess you've seen some research where if you sum up the two marginal revenue curves, I sum up the marginal revenue curve of group one, the marginal revenue of group two, and I get this curve right here. It's the combined marginal revenues, or the summation of the two marginal revenues. And I set that equal to marginal cost. And basically at that level, I set where that equals the individual marginal revenues is the quantity that I sell to two groups, and then I just let the price be determined by the demand curve, and I'll end up charging a little higher price to group one and a little lower quantity, and a little lower price to group two with a little more quantity than I would if I priced them separately, where each one's marginal revenue equals marginal cost, each group. Now I can go back that I showed you the graph and show you the explanation. So in that graph below, G is a horizontal summation of the two marginal revenue curves. G intersects the marginal cost curves, determine the total quantity produced. And at the dollar amount where marginal cost intersects G will determine the quantity sold to each consumer group, right? At that point where the dollar amount intersects each marginal revenue curve. In this case, group 1 buys a smaller quantity at a higher price, and group 2 buys a larger quantity at a lower price compared to if we separated, if we, charge a price where the marginal revenue equals marginal cost for each group, right? And this maximizes quantity, right? Relative to doing that, charging the individual marginal revenues or charging a price, or quantity, selling quantity, where the marginal revenues equal the individual, the marginal cost equals the individual marginal revenues. So since I blundered that, I'll go through the graph one more time. So I sum up the two marginal revenue curves. I get this curve G, and that's going to determine where those two intersect the total quantity. At that dollar amount, where it intersects the two individual marginal revenue curves, is the quantity that I'll produce for each group. For the first group, Q1, and I'll let the demand curve determine the price, P1, and this price will be, a little higher and a little lower quantity than if I charged, or if I chose a point where marginal costs equal the individual marginal revenue curves. For the other group, group 2, right, I charge Q2, that's where this dollar amount intersects the marginal revenue curve, and charge the price of P2, and this price would be a little lower with a little higher quantity than if I charged, or if I chose a point where its marginal revenue, right, equals the marginal cost. So it'd be a little more Q, right, and a little less Q. Questions? Okay. So what are the conditions that have to be met for this type of price discrimination? Well, we have to have different demands, first of all. It has to be heterogeneous. That is, different demand segments must have different price elasticities. The manager must be able to identify and segregate the different market segments. And the market must be successfully sealed so the customer in one segment can transfer the goods to another segment. They must be different enough in their demands, or in other words, they must have enough, their elasticities of demand have to be different enough to make it worthwhile, right? To have two groups. And the manager has to be able to identify and target the segments at moderate cost. The buyer must be enabled to transfer the product from one segment to the other. We call this segment and seal. That means we can keep them from transferring goods to one to the other, and then we're able to identify the two groups and charge them different prices. Okay. So, if you remember, right, to maximize profits, P plus 1 over the elasticity of demand had to equal marginal cost, right? I do this, I have the same marginal cost if I have the same marginal cost for both groups, right? I have the two conditions that will lead to the ratio of prices being equal to 1 plus the elasticity of demand of the first group, in this case group K, divided by 1 plus 1 over the elasticity of the second group, in this case group I. Now, if I wanted a percentage of group I over group J, I could, for instance, call PJ equal to PI over X, or PI plus X, right? For one that has a lower elasticity. This is just the same thing over again. I can determine, if I knew those things, I could determine, for instance, what kind of discounts I should give. Or if I was talking about coupons or rebates, I can determine how big the coupon could be if I can separate out the people who use coupons and those who don't use coupons. People use coupons or send in rebates unless they have more elastic demand curve. If I knew how much more elastic, I can determine how big the coupon should be to maximize profits. And of course, having these coupons or rebates gets people to self-select their their target segment. In other words, it tells me if their elasticity is high or not. Okay. So in this case, right, I use basically the same formula we had before, but instead of PI and PJ, I have P and P minus X. In this case, for the person with a more inelastic demand is P. So P minus 1 over the absolute value of the interest rate equals P minus X times 1 minus 1 over the absolute value of the elasticity for group S. And this is for group R. Where X is the discount for the coupon. I want to call it NR because I forget the Greek letter. Somebody help me? What's the Greek letter? Name? I can't remember. So I'm gonna call it in. So NR is the elasticity of those who don't use the coupon, and S are those who use the coupon. If I have the following numbers, for instance, marginal cost equals 2, it's constant. The elasticity of demand for those who don't use the coupon is -2. And for those who use the coupon, it's -5. So from this, I can determine the price for those who don't use the coupon. Right? I set marginal cost equal to marginal revenue, and I get a price of 4. And it's basically just using this formula here, right? I put in -2 here, set that equal to 2, and that gives me a price of 4. For the group that does use coupons, I do the same thing, right? I set 4 minus X times 1 minus 1 over -5, that's the value of -5, and I set that equal to 2. So that's a marginal cost. And I solve for X, and I get X of 1.5. So that means the coupon should be worth $1.50. So those who don't use coupons pay $4, and those who use coupons pay $2.50. Questions? Okay. Issues in pricing strategy. The demand for some goods is time sensitive or seasonal, and sometimes plant capacity is constant. If we can think of electricity generation maybe, or maybe traffic. Basically, these are things that are going to determine the elasticity at different times, or different elasticities at different times. Say example, electricity generation, roadways, resorts or hotels. Some of you guys might work in a hotel or resort, and you know, during the winter the price goes higher, but during the fall and spring it drops, and summer I guess it depends. So intertemporal pricing of intellectual property. Early releases charge peak pricing, and later releases charge drop pricing. For instance, books, when they first released, they're released in hardbound, and then later they'll go to soft copy at a lower price. And well, you guys are students, so you know that textbooks love to do this. Okay. So what do? So during peak times, right, when demand is high, I charge a higher price, depending on elasticity at that time. When it's low, during trough periods, I charge a lower price. Okay. Marginal cost often follows a cyclical pattern in which marginal cost is high during peak periods and low during trough periods. So to equate or to maximize profits, I simply use the 2 periods and set marginal cost equal to marginal revenue separately in each of the periods. So in this case, I have an upward sloping marginal cost curve. During the peak, I'm going to generate QP and charge TP. That didn't sound like it. And during the trough, I'm going to generate QT and charge PT, right? So I charge a lower price during the trough and a higher price during the peak. In some places, for electricity generation, they charge more during prime time. That means when I say prime time, TV prime time. So basically, it's trying to encourage you not to run your AC or your washing machine at those times, and try to do it when excuse me, when it's better for them and they can generate electricity. It's not done in Puerto Rico, but it's done in other places. Road tolls here, again, it's not done here, but in other places during during rush hours, they charge higher tolls. So trying to encourage people that have that have a choice not to use the roads during rush hour, because not only is it going to take them longer, it's going to cost them more. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is a two-part tariff. And basically this was the cover charge and stuff that I talked about in second degree price discrimination. Do you have a question? David?
Profesora, ahora sí, no molestia, me da un ejercicio de ese, de la cabeza.
¿Tú quieres un ejercicio de esto?
Sí, había puesto unas fórmulas anteriores.
Matemáticamente. Ok, es un poquito diferente, pero la podemos hacer. Tell you what, send me an email and I'll make up a question and I'll send it to everybody. Because if I do it now, it's going to take a while, and there's a chance that excuse me, that what I make up in my head right now won't be solvable, and just simply because of math. But essentially, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a demand curve, right? One that's that has a little higher intercept for the peak tide, and then basically you're going to have to multiply that by P or Q to get total revenue, take the derivative, get marginal revenue. I'll give you a marginal cost function or maybe a total cost function where you have to derive total cost. And then out of the two demand curves that I give you, right, you'll calculate marginal revenue, and in both you'll set it equal to marginal cost of each. Okay. So back to a two-part tariff, right? Under this situation, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to charge the person a per use fee and excuse me, a user fee, a cover charge, whatever it might be. But basically, there's two fees. So if you go to a bar, you have to pay for your drinks, but you have to pay to get into the bar too. That's the cover charge. For instance, Costco, you have to pay a membership fee, and you still have to pay for the items. And other examples, country clubs, where you still have to pay to play golf or per round, but you have to pay in order to use the golf, excuse me, the course. Of course, wireless phone plans, they don't do it anymore. Everything's used, but it used to, you have to pay and then you'd have a per minute fee. Personalized seat licenses for sports stadiums. I pay for this and then I have to pay for individual tickets, but the personalized seat license gives me the right to those tickets. Okay, so assume all consumers have the same preferences, defined by demand curve. For generic demand curve, P equals A minus BQ. Assume that the firm's marginal cost is constant, right? Assume that the entry fee is equal to consumer surplus. And I'm going to assume that the user fee is equal to marginal cost. And total revenue is the same. I'm sorry, I'm not assuming this is going to happen. Total revenue is going to be the same as under first degree price discrimination. And we do this because I assume I can figure out what the consumer's reservation price is. In other words, what his consumer surplus is. So in this case, I charge him a fee equal to A, which is consumer surplus, and then I charge a price equal to marginal cost. So I charge him A, and then that gets him in the door, and then he has to pay a per use fee, right, equal to marginal cost. In this case, right, I have a demand curve. Start off at 10, and decrease to 4, 6. At units of 6, so I can 0.5, 10 minus 4. By the way, that's the formula for a triangle, that's all it is, times 6. Right? So that's 6 times 6 times 0.5 gives me 18. I'm just calculating the consumer surplus. Okay. I can do the same thing if I don't have constant marginal cost, right? As long as my variable cost profit is positive, when my marginal cost has a positive slope. And I can do the same thing with different demand curves, which we'll get into in a little bit. But here with the upward sloping marginal cost curve, it's the same thing. I charge a price of P, where price equals marginal cost, where it intersects the demand curve, and I still charge a cover charge or a membership fee or whatever it might be of consumer surplus A star. Questions? Does that make sense? Can you see the difference between that curve, where we have constant marginal cost, and this one where we have increasing marginal cost? The result's exactly the same. Right? I charge a per use fee of P star and a membership fee or a cover charge of A star. Questions? Okay. So getting back to here, suppose I have a market where I have two separate groups, one that has really strong demand and one has really weak demand. What strategies can I use? When the strong demand is much stronger than the weak demand, what I want to do is I want to charge a fee equal to marginal cost and an entry fee, a membership fee, a cover charge, whatever it might be, equal to the consumer surplus of the strong demanders. What that's going to do is that cover charge is going to be too high for those who have weak demand, and they're going to exclude themselves from the market. They're not going to pay the membership fee or the entry fee or whatever it might be. If the strong demand and the weak demand are closer, right, to each other, in that case, what I want to do is I have two options. I can set a fee equal, per use fee equal to marginal cost, and an entry fee equal to the consumer surplus of the weak demanders. The other option is to charge a price per use fee above marginal cost, and then set the entry fee equal to the consumer surplus of the weak demanders. In both those cases, in both those latter two cases, right, the strong demanders join and the weak demanders join. It just depends on the three options, which, excuse me, which gives me the highest profit. So the optimal strategy when strong demand is not much stronger than weak demand is found by comparing the total average cost profit from the two strategies. That means when the weak demand and the strong demanders are close to each other, I just choose which profits best. Okay. So here we go. Here's our graph. This is strong demand. This is weak demand. Okay. If strong demand is a lot stronger than weak demand, what's the entry fee? You know the answer, right? Basically, I want you to add up these areas here by letter. If the strong demand is much stronger than the weak demand, what should the entry fee be? Okay.
A plus B.
I'm sorry? No, not quite. Okay, let me go back. All right. When the strong demand is much stronger than the weak demand, I set the user fee equal to marginal cost and the entry fee equal to the strong demander's consumer surplus. So what's the strong demander's consumer surplus? I'll give you a hint. It's bigger than anybody has said so far. It says bigger than anybody said so far, still. Triangle, right? The charges user fee equal to marginal cost, and this whole area, right, is this consumer surplus, A, B, C, D, E. And that's when the strong demanders is much stronger than the weak demanders.
Profesor, ¿y cómo llegamos a esa conclusión de que me está pidiendo, o sea, el enunciado? O cómo leo la gráfica partiendo de las descripciones que usted me dio en el template anterior.
Okay.
O sea, como yo le hallo la correspondencia entre el aspecto teórico y ya el método práctico, que pues sería un ejercicio.
Okay. El ejercicio, básicamente,
porque es numérico, como yo trazo o como yo identifico los números, los puedo asociar con la gráfica. Ahora mismo yo no lo podría hacer, no tengo los elementos completos.
Ok. Primero, hay dos, en el ejercicio en el ejemplo que yo te di ahora, el precio va a ser igual al costo marginal. Entonces, ese es el primer paso.
Eso ya está dado.
Sí.
Okay.
Y siempre es así cuando la demanda de los, vamos a decir, fuertes, que tienen fuerte demanda, es mucho más grande de los débiles. En ese caso, ¿verdad? Yo quiero esto triángulo. And that's what I do. So, if I gave you that question, right, you'd have to figure out how big this triangle is. So if you knew the intercept here, you knew what marginal cost was, and you knew what the total quantity was, you could calculate consumer surplus just by calculating the area of that triangle. ¿Contesté tu pregunta? Okay.
Sería sabiendo esos tres elementos.
Sí.
El concepto, y obviamente los tengo que igualar, ¿o no?
Perdón, igualar a qué.
Para poder obtener el área del triángulo.
En ese caso, ¿verdad? Tú sabes, este punto y este punto. O esta cantidad, ¿verdad? La diferencia entre aquí y aquí, ¿verdad? Entonces yo tengo la diferencia multiplicado por esta diferencia de Q3 multiplicado por 0.5. Esa es la área de un triángulo. Okay. By the way, there in the homework there is a practice problem on this. Okay. Uh, okay, so what if I have the weak demanders demand very close to the strong demanders? I have two options in that case. I can charge P star, which is a price above marginal cost, or I can charge marginal cost. What if I charge marginal cost as a per unit cost? What would the entry fee be in this case? I'll give you a hint. It's when I charge the price of marginal cost, it is a consumer surplus of the weak demanders, of those with weak demand. I'm sorry?
The little triangle,
It's a triangle, but you gotta give me letters.
ACV.
ACD, perfect. Okay. Now, what if I charge a price above marginal cost and a price of P star? What would the entry fee be then? Help me out. No? Real easy.
Hey,
Okay. You answered the last one, though. I wanted somebody else to answer. Yeah. Okay. A, right? It's this triangle right here. Okay. So basically, once I have those three questions, I just figure out which one gives me more profit, and that's what I choose. In general, if the strong demanders is obviously a lot stronger than the weak demanders, then you don't even have to do it. You just charge marginal costs and charge the consumer surplus of the strong demanders. And weak demanders, right, well, won't pay the entry fee. They'll basically exclude themselves because it's not worth it for them to pay the entry fee. Okay? On the other two cases, you just have to figure out which gives you more profit. So this basically says what we just did, right? The first entry fee is A through F. The second entry fee is A plus C plus D, and then the last one is just A. And I said, and then I just figure out if this gives me more profit or this gives me more profit. And by the way, you have to, the optimal P, your book has a big, complicated formula of how is the optimal P. You don't have to worry about it. It's too much math for us. This on a test, I give you what P will be. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and try it. Okay. So, este es lo que me pediste ahorita. Okay. Entonces, what's the first thing we have to do? I've given you marginal cost. By the way, I'll leave it at 5-2. I think it's 5-2.
Y aquí estaríamos buscando qué parte. O sea, con esos tres datos que estoy buscando.
Okay. Yo quiero esta cantidad, esta cantidad. ¿Qué es la primera cosa que necesitamos hacer?
Estamos buscando
Dos cantidades.
dos cantidades.
Bueno, sustituir, despejar para Q en ambas ecuaciones.
Ok, pero antes de eso, ¿qué necesitamos hacer? ¿Eh?
Por eso trabajo.
¿Qué es esta curva aquí? That's this curve. What's this curve? I'm hearing a bunch of stuff, but I think I heard somebody say it, but. Sorry? Okay, this is the remainder of the trough, at the trough, right? That means this is the marginal revenue. Ingreso marginal, the trough, right? How do I get marginal revenue? What do I need before I get marginal revenue?
Total revenue.
Total revenue. How do I get total revenue?
P times Q.
P times Q. That's my man. Okay, I have P times Q, right? Which means,
Ya. Y luego times Q. Ya. Es 50 Q menos 0.5 cuadrado.
I hope you guys wrote the thing, because I'm, the man, we have to go back to it. So, therefore, total revenue for the peak, total revenue for the trough,
Producto.
over here it's 50Q minus 0.5Q squared, and for the trough it's 30Q minus 0.75Q squared. What's the next thing I have to do? I have total revenue, I need
The reality.
marginal revenue, perfect. How do I get marginal revenue? Perfect, I take the derivative, so
50 punto 10 Q.
Exacto. Está muy duro. Estamos buscando, pero para eso necesitamos un montón de otras cosas.
okay. 2 multiplicado por 0.5,
50 más punto 10. Punto 10.
punto 10.
Sí. Punto 5 por 2. Mentira, 1.
Gracias.
1.
A ese nivel.
¿Y esto? 2 por punto 75.
30 menos 1.50.
Gracias.
Eso sí está bien.
Ok. Entonces, ¿qué es, dónde es el punto óptimo?
Cuando está en igual, MC es igual a MR.
Perfecto. Déme escribir MR aquí. Now comes the moment of truth, and hope I picked a good marginal cost. So, for the peak, the marginal revenue, the trough, which is 30, equals, minus 1.5Q is equal to 5Q, right? Which is equal to marginal cost. So I have the 1.5Q negative, I bring it to that side, and I have 30 is equal to 6.5Q, or Q is equal to 30 over 6.5. I need a calculator, somebody help me out. I'll go ahead and
4.62. Y el otro a 8.33.
¿Perdón?
El siguiente da 8.33.
¿8?
Ese específico da 4.62
Ajá.
y el
Oh, this is a trough. Never mind. You're right. My bad.
segundo da
50.
Estamos buscando punto de equilibrio entre
54.
estaba buscando la ecuación de Q. Exacto.
50 dividido por 6 era cuánto?
33.
Ok. Entonces la cantidad aquí, su P, es 8.33
Tiene Q y tiene
y la cantidad aquí es 4.62.
buscaste el Q en ambas ecuaciones para buscar Q. Porque lo estoy buscando aquí.
Entonces, ¿cómo sacaremos el precio cuando tenemos Q? The problem is I wrote over it over there. I didn't write over it. I wrote around it. And
En la
Ah,
ecuación de la,
sustituir
del precio.
Exacto,
En
porque
la
tenemos
ecuación.
P. Ya está en términos de P.
en términos de P, y esa es la, ¿cómo se llama esa ecuación?
¿Cuál es el caso?
Ajá.
Okay, I'm gonna erase a little here to get to where I was before.
Sí, eso es.
Y por eso, entonces ahí sustituyo
Sustituye Q
Q
y P en
en
términos de
Okay,
P.
pero esta ecuación, ¿cómo se llama? Demanda. Es demanda inversa, pero es demanda. Perfecto. So, tengo el precio aquí, ¿qué hago?
sustituyo
Aquí subió 8.33 y aquí 4.62 para el precio. And I need you guys to help me out with the calculator.
4.17 es 50 menos 4.17.
¿Cómo?
La primera demanda y la
50
segunda.
menos 4.17.
No, las dos son de manera.
Oh,
45,
Pero son dos productos
da
distintos.
total 45.83.
ok. 45.83
Sí, 83.
y esta.
Y esa es 4.
Everything?
26.51.
20.
26.51.
Ok. Y the dollar amount. Ok.
Pero vamos bien.
¿Vamos?
Bueno,
Okay.
Sí, pero-
Everybody gave me bad looks when I said I was going to put it off, so I figured I would do it now.
tienen tus dos cantidades de dos precios. En equilibrio. No, o sea, porque
Okay, now I'd like to go on to the next chapter, lecture 10, and bundling. Bundling is simply, I sell two products, right? And instead of selling them separately, I make the consumer buy them both. Sort of like McDonald's with their value meals, right? They sell, instead of having you buy a Coke, fries, and a burger separately, you can buy it in one meal. Okay. So I want to explain how managers can use bundling and time we'll talk about later, not tonight, next week, strategies to increase profits when consumers have heterogeneous tastes, that means different tastes. Explain how firms use transfer pricing. Again, we'll talk about transfer pricing next week, not this week. To provide incentives to wholly owned subsidiaries and divisions and to shelter profit from taxes and in the global environment. Okay. So we're going to start. Simple bundling is when the manager offers several products or services as one package, so the consumer does not have an option to buy the product separately. You have to buy the bundle. Okay. An example, inclusion of a contract service with the product. Sometimes if your company buys a copier, basically you have to sign a contract with the person who sold you the copier so they can maintain it for you. Mixed bundling allows for the two. This is just like McDonald's. I can buy all three of those separately, the Coke, the fries, and the burger, or I can buy the value meal, which is cheaper, right? The bundling price is generally less than the sum of the prices of individual components, example, season tickets, the sporting events, or, as I said, value meals at McDonald's. I told you that the consumers had to have heterogeneous taste. It helps a lot if they have negative correlation. In other words, one person likes the fries and the other person likes the hamburger or the drink. So basically, when you have negative correlation, you can increase your profits more, and we'll see that in the next few examples. In other words, the negative correlation is when one customer has a higher reservation price for one item in the bundle, but a lower reservation price in the other item in the bundle, whereas a different group of consumers has the reverse preferences. Right? So managers form bundles to increase profits from creating negative correlation across consumers. The advantages of bundling is bundling can increase profits, and that's what we've been talking about. Bundling can emulate first-degree price discrimination when it's otherwise not possible because individual reservation price can't be determined, or law prohibits price discrimination. And bundling doesn't require knowledge of the individual consumer's reservation prices, only a distribution of the consumer's reservation prices. For any price agreement, price discrimination, I need to know the different groups or the different consumers. For bundling, I don't need to know. I just need to know the distribution, but I don't need to know which consumers have high demand or which consumers have low demand. My strategies, I'm going to assume that the goods are independent for this example. So the value of the bundle is equal to the sum of the reservation prices. In other words, there's no synergy in bundling them for the consumer. And separate prices when they're not bundled. So the prices are set equal to the profit maximizing monopoly price when I price them separately. So my three strategies is pricing them separately, pure bundling, where I only allow the consumer to buy the bundle. I don't allow them to buy it separately. And of course, mixed bundling, where I give them the choice to buy it separately or in a bundle. And of course, I'm going to choose the strategy that maximizes profits. Notation, little RI is the reservation price for good I. PI is the price charged for good I. And big PB is the price charged for the bundle. So if I price separately, right, it's a bunch of notation, but it's basically if my reservation price is below the first item and my reservation price for the second item is below the price, I'm not going to buy either one. If my reservation price for good one is above the price, but my reservation price for good two is below the price, I buy good one and I don't buy good two. If my reservation price is below the price for good one, I don't buy good one, but if my reservation price for good two is above the price for good two, I buy good two. And finally, if my reservation price for both items is above the price they charge, I buy both goods. So graphically, we can see it here. Here's a distribution of the prices for good 2 along the vertical axis. And here for good 1, right? I have 4 sections in this triangle. Over here, they buy neither. Over here, they buy only good 2 and don't buy good 1. And over here, they buy good 1 but not good 2. And up here, they buy both goods. So, if if I had numbers, sorry, right, I can determine how much how much revenue I was going to get. Like here, they buy both goods at P1 and P2. Here they buy P1, right? Here they buy good 1 at P1, and here they buy the good 2 at P2. The next 2 graphs I'm going to give you is first pure bundling, where they're only allowed to buy the bundle, so they'll buy the bundle or they won't buy the bundle. And then finally mixed bundling, where they can either buy the bundle or buy the goods separately. And you're going to have a bunch of different groups, and that graph gets ugly quick. Okay, so this is the first one. This is pure bundling. I have a choice. I can either buy the bundle or not. I'm going to buy the bundle if the summation of my 2 reservation prices is greater than the price of the bundle. And right, so my reservation price for good 1 plus my reservation price for good 2. If that's greater than the price of the bundle, I'll buy the bundle. If not, I will not buy the bundle. Now going back, right? Here, I buy neither good nor the bundle if R1 plus R2 is less than PB and R1 is less than P1 and R2 is less than P2. If this was true, I would just buy P1. I mean, if this wasn't true, I would just buy P1. Or if this wasn't true, I'd just buy P2. And of course, if this was true, I'd buy the bundle. So I buy the bundle if R1 plus R2 is greater than the price of the bundle, just like. And I buy only good 1 if R1 is greater than P1, and R2 is less than P2. That means I won't buy P2 separately. And R2 is less than PB minus P1. What does this last part mean? R2 is less than PB plus P1. Right? It might be that I want to buy both goods separately, or I would. But the bundle is better for me, even though I don't like R2, right? In other words, the consumer surplus that the individual receives from buying the bundle is greater than buying just R1. Okay. If R2 is greater than P2, okay, I said that for good now, but R1 is less than P1, and R1 is less than PB minus P2, right? I just buy good 2. So in other words, it might be that the price of the bundle is lower than my reservation cost for the bundle, but I get more consumer surplus from buying just R2. Does that make sense, everybody? Did I hear no? Okay. Let me go on just a little bit, and I'm going to try to see if I can make it clear. This graph I know is not going to help. But okay, here I buy neither good separately because the reservation price is the sum of the reservation prices is less than the bundle, and R1 is less than P1 and R2 is less than P2. So I'm not going to buy any. So that one's simple. Up here in this ugly little thing, I buy only good 2. Why? Because the difference between the reservation price of good 2 and the price of good 2, right, is greater than R2 plus R1 minus PB. What that means is my consumer surplus from just buying good 2 alone is greater than my consumer surplus from buying the bundle. And right? So in this case, even though I'm just buying good 2, if I didn't have the choice of just buying good 2, I would probably buy the bundle because my consumer surplus from buying the bundle is still positive. So in this case, I do not buy good one separately, I just buy good two. Here I buy the bundle because my reservation price for buying the bundle, that's R1 plus R2 minus PV, is greater than the difference or my consumer surplus from buying good two. In other words, the difference between my reservation price for good two minus the price of good two. And if I do the math, that just means that R1 is greater than the difference between the price of the bundle minus the price of good two. So in this case, I don't buy good one separately, I buy the bundle because R1 is less than P1. Here I buy the bundle also because my consumer surplus R1 plus R2 minus PV is greater than the consumer surplus I get from P1 plus the consumer surplus I get from P2. I can do the math, and that would mean P1 plus P2 is greater than the price of the bundle. This is the Happy Meal. This is why I buy the Happy Meal, because buying all three of them separately is cheaper than buying them, buying all three of them together in the value meal is cheaper than buying them separately. Here is just the opposite of this. Here, I buy the bundle because R1 plus R2 minus PV, the consumer surplus I get from buying the bundle, is greater than just buying good one, R1 minus P1. Or I can say it differently, that R2 is greater than PV minus P1. So I don't buy good separately, I buy the bundle. Here, I buy just good one because R1 minus P1 is greater than R2 plus R1 minus PV. In other words, my consumer surplus from buying just good one is greater than my consumer surplus from buying the bundle, even though I still get positive consumer surplus from buying the bundle, or I would if I bought it. So I don't buy good two separately, of course, because R2 is greater than P2. And I know that's not, oh, I left one spot out. I left this little triangle here. In this case, I buy only the bundle because R1 plus R2 is greater than the bundle, but my reservation price is greater than just P1, and my reservation price is, just greater than P2. So I wouldn't buy these two separately anyway, but here, right, I get a positive consumer surplus from buying the bundle. Okay. Questions? Okay. Are you getting the gist or not quite? It's all about consumer surplus, right? It's which gives me the greatest consumer surplus when I have the choice. If I get more consumer surplus from the bundle than I do buying them separately, I buy the bundle. If I get more consumer surplus from just buying one than I do from the bundle, I buy that one item. Okay. So my first example, I'm going to assume perfect negative correlation among consumers, and I'm going to give you the prices that you're going to see. No variation in total bundle valuation. All the bundles, right, are worth $100 in reservation price. The unit cost of producing each good is $1. So here, right, consumer D is willing to pay $90 for good two, but only $10 for good one. Consumer C is willing to pay $50 for good one and $50 for good two. Consumer B is willing to pay $40 for good two and $60 for good one. And finally, consumer A is willing to pay $10 for product two, but $90 for product one. Okay. So here's a table of the graph I just showed you.
Profesor, ¿se va a comportar igual que la curva de indiferencia? Pues que veo que se comporta un poquito. No sé.
No, porque estas son cuatro personas distintas.
Okay.
A, B, C y D. La curva de indiferencia es que yo estoy en diferencia entre cualquier punto en la curva. This would be close to, basically, if I had, well, it would have to be an indifference curve with perfect substitutes, or a budget line. So here's a table. Like I said, consumer A, 90-10, consumer B, 60-40, consumer C, 50-50, and consumer then 10-90. Notice all these reservation prices add up to 100, right? So for the bundle, their reservation price is $100. Okay. So if I'm pricing them separately, right, it's real easy, with a little bit of work, but it's easy conceptually to figure out how I'm going to maximize profits. For good one, right, if I charge $90, I'll only sell one unit and my profits will be $89. If I charge $60, right, which is what B would willing to pay, I sell 2 units, so therefore I make $120 minus the cost. It's $1 per unit, so it's $118. If I charge $50, right, I'll end up selling 3 units, right, to A, B, and C. I'll sell 3 units, right, at $50 a piece. I make $150 in revenue minus $3 in cost, so $147. And finally, if I charge $10, I will sell all 4. Like $40 minus the $4 in cost, I get $36. So I maximize profits in this case, for good one, when I charge $50. For good two, if I charge $10, I make 36. That means I sell 4 units, and minus $4 of cost. If I charge $40, I sell 3 units, right? 3 times 40 will give me 120, minus the $3 in cost, 117. If I charge $50, right, I sell 2 units. 2 times 50 gives me 100 minus the $2 in cost gives me 98. And finally, if I charge $90, I only sell 1, and my profits will be 89. That's 90 in revenue minus the $1 cost. So I maximize revenue for good 2, charging $40. I add those up and I get 2. How much was it? 264. I should have just done the math in my head. Okay. So that's if I charge separately. If I charge a pure bundle price, I make $392 in profit, and I'll show you how we do that. And then your book does the following. It does an optimal mix value, mix bundle price, and then a bundle where you charge a price for the goods separately, where one consumer will buy at least one of the goods separately. But let's start with the pure bundle price, right? In this case, right, I charge $100. The cost of the bundle per bundle is 2 units is $2. So that means $8 in total. So 100 minus 2, I get $98 per bundle. And multiply that by the 4 bundles I sell, I get $392. Okay, here, again, I'm going to charge $100 for the bundle, but I'm going to charge $90.01 for the goods separately. What that $90.01 ensures is that nobody's going to buy the goods separately, because the highest reservation price I got is, remember, $90. So if I charge $90.01, right, nobody's going to buy it. So in this case, my mixed bundling is the same as the pure bundling because I'm making sure nobody buys them separately. So I'm just selling the bundle. Now, what if I lowered that price just a little below $90, where I was able to sell one good to consumer A and one good to consumer D? So I lower that price just 2 cents to $89.90, where it's below consumer's A for price for good one, consumer's A reservation price. He buys it, right, at $89.99, that one unit. And what that means is he buys it. Why does he buy it instead of buying the bundle? Help me out here. Why would he buy good one instead of buying the bundle? Help me out. Because he's got consumer surplus. It's only a penny, right? But he has a penny of consumer surplus here. He has zero consumer surplus here. So in this case, consumer A would choose to buy good one separately and not buy the bundle. And over here, for consumer D, he'll choose to buy good two separately because he has a penny of consumer surplus and not buy the bundle. Now, this is obviously theoretical. Most people are being different. We don't really have a fixed reservation price in our head. But in this case, we're assuming we do. So this guy buys good two separately, doesn't buy the bundle. So I add this up. 196 plus 88.99 plus 88.99 gives me $373, which is less than the pure bundling profit of $392. So in example, this first example I gave, the profit maximizing price is, or the profit maximizing strategy is pure bundling or a mixed bundling where I charge a price when nobody's going to buy the two goods separately. That's going to give me the most profit. Questions? Okay. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. Let me give you some definitions. Credibility of the bundle. When a manager correctly anticipates which customers will purchase the bundle or the goods separately. In this case, we know the exact reservation prices, so it's easy for us. Extraction, when the manager extracts the entire consumer surplus from each consumer. It doesn't have to be the entire consumer surplus. They extract some consumer surplus. Exclusion, when the manager does not sell a good to a customer who values the good at less than the cost of producing it. In other words, I'm going to charge a price that's going to exclude some people. I could sell it to them at a cost higher than marginal cost, but that's not necessarily going to give me the highest profit. And finally, inclusion, when a manager sells a good to a consumer who values the good at a greater than the seller's cost of producing the good. Okay. So extraction, exclusion, and inclusion are all satisfied by perfect price discrimination. Pricing separately will satisfy exclusion, but will not result in extraction. In other words, I won't get all the consumer surplus. Or inclusion, I won't sell to everybody who values it above the production costs. Pure bundling can result in complete extraction. That means you get all the consumer surplus. But if the consumer reservation price does not have perfectly negative correlation, like in our examples, extraction will be less than complete. It's also possible for pure bundling to fail to attain full inclusion or exclusion. I'll get some people that, some people that are willing to buy it for more than it costs to produce, and I exclude them from the market, or I won't get everybody who's got that reservation price. Some will exclude, some I won't. The profit from mixed bundling is always equal to or better than the price, the pricing separately of pure bundling. And that's simply because I can charge a price for either the bundle or for the good separately. That's going to make it so nobody either buys the bundle or buys the good separately. And that's why this is true. But it's kind of academic. Okay. So now, after you got all those definitions, we go on to good two. The only difference between, example two. The only difference between example two and example one is how much the goods cost. In example one, the goods only cost $1 to produce. Now they cost $11 to produce. So we go through the same exercises. If I price them separately and offer no bundle, my profit is $201. If I have a pure bundle, my profit is $312. And of course, my mixed bundle with prices that exclude anybody from buying them separately, they're $312. And finally, the optimal mixed bundle price, right, where I make sure that one of the consumers buys either good one or good two, gives me a higher profit of $313.90. So let's go through and see why that is, right? So here, for a good one, if I charge $90, I make 79 in profit. If I charge $60, I make 98 in profit. If I charge $50, I make 117 in profit, which is my highest profit. And of course, I charge $10, that's below my cost of $11, and I lose money. For good two, if I charge $10, I lose money. If I charge $40, I make $87 in profit. If I charge $50, I make 78 in profit, and if I charge $90, I make $79 in profit. So charging $40 is going to maximize my profit. I sum these two up, and I get profits of $204, like you saw on the last slide. Oops. With the pure bundle, again, I charge $100 for the bundles, and I sell all 4 bundles. In our example, that's a reservation price, $100 for the bundle. The bundle costs $22, $11 for each item in the bundle. So 100 minus 22 gives me $78 per bundle. I sell 4 of them, I have $312. I can do a mixed bundling where I make sure that nobody's willing to buy the item separately by charging $90.01. And I get the same result because everybody buys a bundle. I make $312. Now what I want to do is I want to lower that price individually to a price of $89.99, where at least one consumer has a positive consumer surplus from buying the goods separately. Right? So $89.99, you've got a penny of consumer surplus. It costs $11. So it makes $78.99. The same thing for consumer D. And he gets a penny consumer surplus, he buys good two. It costs $11 to produce it, so the profit's $78.99. And finally, B and C stay with the bundle. $100 minus 22 is 78 per bundle, times 2 gives me 156. 156 plus $78.99 plus $78.99 give me $313 and change, which is greater than the $312 that I would get from the mixed bundling, and greater than the $204 that I get from pricing separately. So in example 2, when I raise the cost just a little bit, right, gave me a situation where mixed bundling increased my profits more than pricing separately. Okay. The last example that I'm going to give you tonight, example 3, again, everything's the same, except I'm going to assume the cost of production rises even more, right, up to $55. So pricing separately with that $55 gives me a profit of $70. The optimal pure bundling price, right, gives me a profit of $0. And the optimal mixed bundling price, right, at a pure bundling price of over $100, so no bundles purchased, gives me $70. And finally, we're going to see the pure bundling gives me the highest profit. So here, if I charge $90, I have $35 in profit for a good one. If I charge $60, I have $10. If I charge $50, I lose $15 because the cost is much higher now. And if I charge $10, I have a big loss. For good two, if I charge $10, I have a big loss. If I charge $40, I have a loss. If I charge $50, I have a $10 loss. And finally, if I charge $90, I have a $35 profit. So that's $70 for pricing separately. The optimal mixed bundle price, right? The reservation price for the bundle is $100, but the cost is $110. So trying to sell the bundle, or if I try to sell the bundle at $100, I'd lose money and I'd lose $40 in profit. So what I need to do, right, is have a mixed bundle where I charge $90 for good A, $90 for good D, and I get $35 here, $35 here, and I charge a price over $100 for the bundle, so nobody buys it. So in this case, right, the mixed bundling gives me the same profit as pricing separately. Right? So our conclusion is, when production cost is low, pure bundling is the best. It extracts all the consumer surplus. When production costs rise a little, mixed bundling is best. And when costs rise further, separate pricing is best. Okay, so the optimal separate price are always equal to the consumer's reservation prices. The optimal pure bundling is always equal to the sum of the consumer's reservation prices. And the optimal mixed bundle prices are not necessarily equal to the reservation prices or their sum, depending. And that's it for tonight. Okay, are there any questions? I actually thought that this lecture was going to go to at least 8:30 and go to 9. Okay. So next week, I'm going to go ahead and finish up bundling, and then we're going to do oligopoly. So are there any questions? Like I said, you can, the homeworks have a lot of this stuff, homeworks 3 and 4, I put up the answers, you can take the deal. Are there any questions on the test?
¿Se lo entregamos o estamos con el examen?
That test is yours.
Okay.
By the way, okay. Now I don't remember. How much is the curve? Ahora no me acuerdo. Okay, this is the distribution. Can you guys see that still?
No.
I was trying to get everybody so I could fit it in. Can you see that? Okay. Whatever's on your 11 points, thank you. The curve's 11 points. So you add 11 points to whatever you have on the back of your test, and that's your grade for the test. So after I added the curve, the mean was 84.65. The median was 89.5. What that means is half of you got A's, and the other half got less than A's. But that was what the curve did. I usually try to bring the medium up to 85. But we had a couple outliers below. So I brought the mean up to close to 85. ¿Perdón? 11 puntos. It's, by the way, this, I'm pretty sure I put the link up. I figured one of you guys would have seen it. I put it up about this afternoon. It's not on the webpage?
A nosotros nos habías enviado el del grupo, otro grupo, el de finanzas, pero no nuestro.
No. Hold on. That link right there on the bottom where it says grades, cinco, 82 cómputos. ¿Cuántos concursos? 72. 72.
Entonces mira, ¿sabes? Tanto el gobierno todo sabe cosas y la clase.
Oh, yeah.
Tiene que ser más de 90.
No necesito hacer más que 90. If you show improvement, like in other words, if the first one's 72 and the other ones are in the 80s, I'll take that into consideration.
Porque fue un ejercicio que no lo hice súper mal, que debe ser un tuve 4. Pero los demás, si lo hubiese hecho bien, hubiese salido como 80 y pico. Fue
Okay.
ese ejercicio. Que se lo puedo enseñar.
Está bien. Si quieres me lo puedes enseñar, pero el punto es I take into consideration improvement.
Okay.
And so you definitely, you have to improve to pass the class, but
Yeah.
definitely if you improve, you will pass the class.
Okay. Vale.
This weekend, this weekend. Yeah, but you didn't double. The A to D, right, is 4.14. 7.7 to 7.7, right? So it should have been that. But then you gotta go back. So you missed that one, that's.
Here.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I didn't take, points off here. I took off points here, I took off points here. That lady, she, ¿cómo se, the older lady? I think. Sí,
Six foot.
so this and this.
And, so if I get like an 85 in the next one, does that count as improving or? Because I got an 83 in this one too. Because I was over, I already you took into
Yeah,
consideration.
right now,
No, I'm
right now you have an A.
Yeah, I have an A, yeah.
Okay.
No, just in case, I don't know, because, I don't know what happens.
I mean,
Because I was-
basically, it's hard to demonstrate improvement above an A. So-
Yeah, I know. That's not my point, yeah. And the other thing is, I don't know if I could take it up 26, because that's like the weekend right after. Yeah, probably not gonna be town.
If you have a legitimate excuse, like you've had a, excuse me, a family trip that you had already planned or whatever, and you weren't gonna be here, I can excuse you from the second midterm.
Okay.
That means your grade will come, from the first midterm and the final.
Because you said, like, in the next class, we have to finish the material in the next class.
Yeah, that's the plan, and I think we'll be able to, because basically I have a lecture and a half left. And that's what I'll finish.
So if it doesn't like, porque si no se acaba ahí, entonces no se correría como que el día, y se discutiera como que el 26 lo que falta y se pudiera el examen el 3. Porque como, o sea, el próximo lunes es el último lunes antes
La cosa es que terminó, bueno, la mayoría del material que doy, se la termino el 3, perdón, el 5. Entonces, el examen no viene hasta un mes después. And the thing is, we have two weeks or basically 3 weeks, so not even, 3 weeks in between. And
I
that's why.
think I'm gonna be out of town, so I'll let you know. If I,
Okay, I just need documentation of why you're out of town.
Okay,
And then I can excuse you, and then I'll give you the grade from the midterm and the first.
all right, thank you.